Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Chris Voss, who is the author of Never Split the Difference, which is one of my favorite books. So hi, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad we finally made the time. So I first came across your book in, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
it was published
Yep.
right after it was published, and I devoured the book because I just thought it was the best insight into negotiation I had ever read. And then I had the privilege of meeting you in person last year at Summit, which was amazing. So thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. Summit's a cool place, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a really great weekend, and I think we all got to have really interesting conversations with interesting humans, which is why I always go. So been dying to ask you a million questions, but before I do, I wanted to know what made you write this book?
Well, hostage negotiation is, applicable to everything.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that from the first moments that I started learning it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we just had to get it together. We had to get to the point where we thought we had a full book, a full system.
Yeah.
So, wanted to write it for a long time. My son and I started teaching this stuff together in business schools. And, when enough people road tested it for us, then we reached out and ultimately ended up with Tall Roz, who's a brilliant guy and an interesting dude. And we put the book together. So it was a labor of love over a long time.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening, I'm just assuming everybody read this book, because why wouldn't you? But in case you haven't, you used to be a FBI negotiator, and now you go and you train executives around the world on effective negotiations and communication, right?
Yeah, I kind of skipped over the FBI part, didn't I?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I know so much about you, so I get that, but I wanted to fill in those who may not have heard of you.
Yeah. FBI hostage negotiator. And then, we put this stuff. I mean, the people that we're coaching on this, not only are they making great deals, but you know what? They're having a great time. I mean, they're having the best time making great deals. They're not making enemies, they're making friends, and they're making great deals.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from your book was that I could have a high value trade and not have to compromise.
Compromise is horrible. I mean, it's funny because, like, if I were to ask you to compromise your integrity, you'd be offended by that. So, or your principles, or compromise who you are. So why is it okay to compromise in a business deal? Because or any negotiation, because it's about who we are. It's about our integrity. So yeah, compromise, it's a bad idea. And they're much better deals without compromise.
What is a good deal in your opinion?
Well, where you discover stuff that you think, wow, that's cool. The other side is delighted. They say, wow, that works for you? I mean, we could do that. If that works for you, that'll go a long way. A speaking gig that I did a couple years ago, one of my favorite deals of all, because they paid me no fee, but they had money for books, and they had a tremendous community and a lot of people that are trying to negotiate better. So they bought a bunch of books. And then the coolest part was, it was the local chapter, National Contracts Managers, Management Association. They said, we're just a local chapter. And I said, well, is there a national chapter? And they're like, yeah. And I go, does the national chapter have a publication? And they said, well, yeah. And I said, well, let's do a joint article together for the national publication, you and us. We get an article out there nationwide, and National needs to put stuff in a publication anyway. And National's like, all we got to do is put an article and you'll go speak for free. And well, yeah. So, it's kind of searching around inside the space. And, like I might say to you, what kind of plant's that in the background? Can you send it to
me? Yeah.
Ask around, ask great questions, and then come up with something super cool, and everybody loves it.
How do you start a negotiation if you're going, and let's just say it's a bit more emotional?
You know what? Every negotiation is emotional. Everyone. I mean, you know, everybody's heard of this thing in our head called the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm really proud of the fact that I can properly pronounce that, because I'm from Iowa. And if you'd asked me what an amygdala was, I would have said it was a prehistoric animal or something. You know, I don't know what this thing is. But every single thought that we have in our head goes through the amygdala in our brain. So every negotiation is emotional. So how do you start it? Here's the best opening line in a negotiation. Sounds like there's something on your mind. Because if we're talking, you got something on your mind, you're dying to tell me. It's just, am I going to listen? You know, most people don't listen. Most people want to make their argument. They want to make their case. You might as well be talking to a wall. So it's refreshing to have somebody that is actually going to listen to you. So we listen like crazy at the beginning of every negotiation. We listen like crazy.
I mean, in case of a hostage negotiation, I'm assuming it's a highly emotional environment.
That's what everybody assumes.
Yeah.
Hostage negotiations are calmer than business negotiations.
Really?
Yeah, it's the dumbest thing, but like, if you got one side that's really looking to hear the other side out, things get calm really fast, and they get settled out really fast. You know, typical bank robbery with hostages, you know, that's which, by the way, there isn't a. They're really rare. It's to say that's typical is a simplification. But the one I was in Brooklyn way back when, you know, that lasted total about between 10 and 12 hours. A business negotiation where people are that emotional and are that far apart on what they want from the beginning is going to last weeks, and we'll get done in 10 or 12 hours. You know, it's an equivalent differing of opinions. So, you know, you start paying attention to the other side, things get resolved really fast.
So you say.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? He's making this stuff up. I'm good at MSU, making stuff up.
Right. So tell me your secret. What is this negotiating technique that actually gets it done so quickly?
Well, you know, if I say it's kind of invisible, it's a stealth weapon.
Yeah.
If I say to you, sounds like there's something on your mind, versus what's on your mind. If I say what's on your mind, it's a good question. And we got to gather information by asking questions. But it triggers a defense mechanism in you where your guard's going to go up slightly. It actually, the path of the thinking is the prefrontal cortex is the executive part of the brain, and the question triggers that, and you go, aha, he wants to know something. So let me give him a thoughtful answer. Let me think about this. But if I say, sounds like there's something on your mind, it actually kind of bypasses the executive part of your brain and gets right into your thoughtful brain and hits it immediately. And it triggers, instead of you being aware I've asked you a question, you immediately go into thought mode. And then you start thinking out loud. And you say to yourself, yeah, you know, there was something on my mind. It starts coming out of your mouth, and you just start sharing stuff. So the simplicity of it is deceiving, because it's designed to get you thinking, to make you feel like you're in a conversation, and you are. Which is, you know, it's probably the way we talked at Summit.
Yeah, I know. So do you recommend, because in most cases, or I don't know if it's in most, but in a lot of cases, people have very emotional reactions when they feel their needs are not being met. So how do you watch your own emotional distortion, or potentially, you know, respond to someone else?
You know, one of two ways. The first way is, if I just get really focused on you, I'll be less reactive. If I'm genuinely curious, if I'm genuinely interested. if I'm in the moment. The more in the moment I am, the more I'm going to pay attention, because we start reacting, we start thinking about the future. We get out of the moment. There's all this mindfulness that's going on now globally, whether it's meditation, whether it's flow hacking, whether you're going to Burning Man, whether you're a Navy SEAL trying to get focused. I mean, literally, there's a global moment to get focused in the moment, to tap into this extraordinary intellect that we have, and our subconscious, which is this powerful, powerful, powerful computer beyond anything that's on the planet now. And it's all about getting in the moment. So as soon as I get in the moment, and then I start taking myself hostage. If I'm worried about where this is going, if I'm feeling anxiety, I'm taking myself hostage. I'm worried about where this is going. And the human potential movement, every aspect, education, TED Talks, I mean, you name it. People who want to perform are really focusing on getting in the moment. And it's the same thing in negotiation. If I can get in the moment, I'm listening to you, I'm paying attention to you. And we're going to have a great discussion about the possibilities.
Mm. How do you feel about lying?
Makes me feel dirty. Now, lying is horrible.
Yeah. Is it counterproductive? Like, what happens when people lie?
Well, it's kind of two aspects of that. The first aspect is most people are lying out of defensiveness. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how to tell you the truth. I don't know how to break it to you. And I'm really worried about our relationship. Or I need time to focus on a relationship because I just don't know how to talk to you. I mean, lying, which has this evil connotation to it. Intentional lying, if I say something to you that I know is false and I know it's going to mislead you, that's pretty bad. But a lot of people leave stuff out, lying by omission. Even though I never said I was going to do it for you, I didn't say when. A lot of little stuff like that. And when we're lied to, we get angry, but it's mostly defensive. I was speaking to a woman, brilliant, NJ Falk. She's in fashion. She's in Los Angeles. She says, take responsibility for how it lands. So NJ, and interesting, I hear this along a lot of really successful women, because Cindy Morey, who's Oprah's talent booker, comes to mind also. Cindy Morey's a straight shooter. She tells the truth, but she takes responsibility for how it lands. Mm-hmm. A hostage negotiator takes responsibility for how it lands. Little things like, instead of just flat out saying no, learning how to say, look, I'm sorry. That just doesn't work. So it's just learning how to tell the truth, but taking responsibility for how it lands. A lot of us haven't learned how to do that. If you can do that, you don't have to lie. And I want to tell you something. We deliver bad news all the time to people in business negotiations, not just in hostage negotiations. But, we don't lie to people. We just take responsibility for how it lands.
Yeah. So what if you find someone across from you entangled in a web of defensiveness and, an inability? In my case, I would say then there would be a bit of an inability to break through and get to the point of it. What would you do?
Yeah, I just start listening to them. And then I just start feeding it back to them in ways where the entanglement is where the opportunity is, really. I mean, some of the training we're doing right now, we're using a Chinese symbol for crisis, because the Chinese symbol for crisis is actually two symbols, and it's danger and opportunity. There is no opportunity without danger. And there is no entanglement without danger. I mean, it's all sort of messed up together. So I'm going to work my way into that really gently, letting you know it's okay to talk to me about the problems. I'm going to go right at the problems. Let's say you're defensive around me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say, yeah, I probably seem kind of intimidating. Or I'm going to say, yeah, it's probably hard to talk to a hostage negotiator because you're wondering what he's thinking. I mean, I'm just, it's kind of naming the elephant in the room. and then being not scared of the elephant, just naming it. We don't make the elephant in the room go away by pretending he's not there. But the crazy thing, or denying that he's there. There ain't no elephant in the room. Yes, there is. But if you go like, hey, there's an elephant in the room, calmly, fearlessly. The other side is like, hey, he's not scared of the elephant. Maybe the elephant isn't that scary. It's a really counterintuitive approach. So I'm going to start at the entanglement. I'm just going to start calling it out, and not in a way or with words or with a tone of voice that make you embarrassed or worried or concerned.
Or make people more defensive.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea, because then it just gets even more tangled.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That just blew my mind. I can think of so many examples just by listening to you. Yeah.
Well, here's a funny one I got the biggest kick out of, because you say blew my mind. Like, all right, so I'm lucky enough to have recently come across Stephen Kotler, and I'm a huge fan of Stephen's book, The Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire. Mm-hmm. So we meet, and he's a crazy guy. He's a lot of fun. And so he starts reading my book, and I get an email from him, said, I threw your book at the wall about 10 times, because every time I read something I should have done, I got mad at myself and threw the book at the wall.
Totally.
All right, well, just keep buying a book. If you drive book sales up. If you ruin everyone every time you read a chapter, you got to go out and buy another one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what's going on in my head right now. I'm listening to you, and every time you say something, I have a scenario in my head that I could have handled better. Following these principles. Yeah.
Here's a cool thing about you. See, if you're thinking like that, a friend of mine used to say, I reserve the right to be smarter today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
You're open to learning. I mean, that's the key. Just be open to learning. And like, all right, I'll go back and do it again, or I'll do it better next time.
Well, that's the key part, right? Because I'm like, I read the book, but like clearly I haven't perfected it. And it's Stephen, it's a matter of throwing it against the wall over and over again, because you keep missing a lot of details. Right?
Yeah, there you go, right?
Yeah. It's it takes a lot to actually master this trait. How long did it take you to learn this?
You start raising the level of your game immediately. Now, how long does it take to raise the level of your game? A day. Don't worry about mastery. They're actually, we tell people, get your reps in. Any given skill, you can wire the synapse in your brain to execute the skill with about 63 tries. So you take it one at a time. These skills are perishable, like playing golf, like playing tennis, like any sport, any activity you perform. But the minute you start working on it, you start getting better. I mean, we have people in our training sessions that will get up halfway through the session with a skill that we just taught them and go make a phone call and make a deal. So you can start getting better right away. Don't worry about mastery. Just worry about getting better.
Okay. Done and done. What's the number one thing you would recommend somebody do if they want to get started on this?
Hear people out. It's the number of deals that you will make just by hearing the other side out and summarize what they've said. I mean, we get no shortage of people that have sent us emails and say, I was getting ready to give in, but I just decided to summarize their point of view, not mine, summarize theirs. Stop making your argument, summarize their point of view, and then shut up. Shut the front door. And somewhere between a third and 3/4 of the time that you do that, then they'll make the deal for you when you shut up. Now, that percentage of success is high enough to try, because that eliminates a lot. You just eliminated a third to 3/4 of your problems, of your impasses. That's worth it. So learn how to hear the other side out, summarize what they've said, and go silent. And you'll be shocked at how many deals you make, or how much agreement, how how much negative reactions are disputed. And I'll give you another one that I love. A guy who's making deals in tech, using this stuff, literally $100 million deals. So he's at a family gathering. His sister is a primary caregiver for their dying father, his younger sister. And his younger sister's had too much to drink. And he's seen this happen when she's had too much to drink because of all the pressure that's on her. She starts in on somebody in the family. And she starts in on him. And he realizes, this is my turn. You know, she's under a massive amount of pressure. It's killing her. He said, all he did, he wanted to let her know that she was heard out. He was going to hear her out. And he wasn't going to dispute anything, which is the essence of exactly what he's doing to make deals. She hammers him for an hour before she finally lets up, with no real resolution, or so he thought. The next day, she sends him an email and she says, you know, I attacked you yesterday and you showed me nothing but love. Thank you for being my big brother. And it's the same thing. Hear the other side out. Don't dispute it. Business deal, interpersonal relationship with somebody that matters to you. Exact same thing. The amount of things that it'll resolve for you is sort of mind-blowing.
Yeah, when I read your book, it blew my mind because it's not just, I thought it was a business book. You know.
What is it now? What do you think it is now?
It's a life book.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it is a business book, and I mean, we're in constant negotiation with everything and everyone in our lives, whether that's our partners or children or relatives or business partners, employees. You know, there's a constant exchange, or I'm going to the store, or I'm, getting my car fixed. And, once you internalize these principles, you realize that you are in consistent negotiation or in a form of exchange. And if you learn how to listen, life becomes a lot easier. So yes, it's a business book, and I haven't found an area of life where it isn't applicable.
Awesome. That's exactly what we want. So perfect. Yeah. And see, you're open to it. That's the cool thing about, what you're expressing, which a lot of people, I'm sure anybody that knows you realizes this is true of you. But the subtlety of it is you're open. You're willing to get better. Life is a delightful prospect. It's an abundant thing if you let it be. And how do you let it be? You're open to stuff like this.
Yeah, I developed this habit of sitting down every evening and looking at how was my day and where are the things I could have handled better. And your book has been very helpful because there's quite a few areas where often I sit down and I go, well, and I think the important component is always that I try to be heard. I try to be heard or make a point over listening, which then escalates the conversation or the confrontation.
Yeah.
Every time. Maybe that's just my specific shortcoming. It's just every time. It's the same thing.
Well, and that's why, I mean, we all got that in us, whether we openly express it or not. I mean, it's an aspect of our survival mechanisms. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and don't lose that. One of the things, we focus so much on hearing out the other side. It's a sequencing issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, we made sure that we're heard also. It's kind of the application of Stephen Covey's advice, hear the other side out before you can be heard. So, that needing to be heard is an essential component. It's just sequencing. It's
just sequencing. Can you elaborate on that?
All right, so
sequencing? Yeah.
That was really good, Mary. You just married me. I think you were showing off to everybody. Did you realize you just married me?
No.
Yeah. When you said it's just sequencing, I mean, that's a beautiful pair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Seek first to understand, then be understood. The Covey advice from way back when. It's a habit of an effective person. But, it's really seek first to demonstrate understanding. Like if I really want you to hear everything I say, the fastest way to it is to hear you out first, because otherwise it's just going to be this really inefficient process of us talking at each other. Since you have what you want to say, and you're not getting, human beings' ears don't open up until they've been heard, which is really what Covey was trying to get across to us. So I'm going to hear you out first because I want to make my point. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard you say that compromise is a bit lazy.
It's lazy and it's horrible. Guaranteed bad outcome. I can't think of how many different examples of it's bad.
Give me one.
Well, all right. So this is an inflammatory compromise. But I'll use it because it's going to hit everybody that hears it mostly on one side or the other. Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. Now, Colin Kaepernick originally wasn't taking a knee. He was originally sitting on the bench. And it came out that he wouldn't rise for the national anthem. And so he sat down, he met with a member of the special forces, and he compromised. And a member of the special forces said, we will take a knee at the gravesite of fallen comrades as a sign of respect. And that touched Colin Kaepernick. It touched him. At his core, he's a decent guy. He's a human being. And, and so to compromise, it moved him, from sitting on the bench to sitting out. And he took a knee to demonstrate more respect, not less. And look at the interpretation of that by both sides. Everybody has been out of shape over him and even more inflamed. His opposition is even more inflamed when his original intention was to show more respect. And I'm sure that he thought, well, I compromised and I'm even more of a villain now than I was before. And so it's what's the intention of what you're trying to do? He tried to show more respect, and in fact, it became an even bigger issue afterwards, and it's become a national issue. And we got a president of the United States that throws a little gasoline on a fire on that every now and then because he knows what a hot button issue it is. And that's just on a grander scale, it's an example of somebody who compromised to try to show more respect, and it completely backfired. And there's no shortage of other examples. So I just don't like compromise. Find a better way to do things.
Yeah. What do you think a high value trait is?
Well, something you got that you don't even know matters to me, but we begin to chat. We call these things black swans. I mean, you don't know you don't know what's driving me. You don't know my whole story. I don't know your whole story. So, it's the example of the national publication and National Contracts Management Association being able to help out the local chapter get a speaker because they got to put an article in a publication. That might be it. You might have a podcast and we might run into each other at Summit. And I don't even know you got a podcast.
Exactly.
And you're looking to have great conversations. And so I'm like, wow, yeah, we could do that. I mean, that's cool. So getting to know people, because everybody by definition has overlap that, I don't know what I got. I got a book. I got 5 books. I've never split the difference in Chinese. I don't read Chinese. I run across somebody that does. They want the books. We could trade.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard you say that, it's always about the high value traits, because if you go for compromise, you're leaving money on the table.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, we just decided the book is in 24 languages in 30 countries. Mm-hmm. And the publishers are wonderful. Every time we get a new publisher, they're going to send me 5 copies of the book in their language. I mean, I got 5 copies of the book in Czech, in Polish, in China. I don't know what to do with these things. After a while, I'm like, taking up space in my house. We're going to find people to give them away to. Not sell them, but give them away. Yeah. So, just fun stuff like that. Have some fun. Find out a great trade. Do you speak Chinese? I'll send you a copy in Chinese.
No, German. So a big portion of the audience here is German. So because the DNX is from Germany and we run them in English and in German. So if you have any, you know what? I would love to read the book in German. That would so interest me to compare it, because sometimes the use of language can trigger a completely new understanding.
I guarantee I will look for the copies in German, and I will send you what we have, and you can give them away to your listeners. How about that? Look at that. There's a high value trade.
There's a high value trade. Yes.
Woohoo. See?
Woohoo. Did it. This is exciting. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're at the end of our time. To everyone listening, go read the book if you haven't read it. And apparently you can read it in German and in English. Super exciting. And if you want to sign up for your newsletter, it's a Black Swan.
Yeah. The newsletter is The Edge. It's complimentary.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes stuff that's free, you don't want it anyway. That's why it's free. But our newsletter is short and sweet. Comes out every Tuesday morning. And it's not a long, heavy read. It's one article. And plus, it's a gateway to all of our training. Now, there's two ways to sign up. One is text to sign up, but you got to be in the U.S. So are most of your listeners in the U.S.?
It's half, I would say.
Okay, so those in the U.S., text to sign up, FBI Empathy, all one word, to the number 22828. Send a message, FBI Empathy, all one word. Don't let your spell check make it 2 words. And if you're not in the U.S., go to the website, Black Swan Ltd. Go to the blog. You can also, all the back articles on the blog are there. You want to read about. The other side's got more power. You're in a salary negotiation. We got tons of articles in there.
And in case you didn't quite catch that, we will post the links below the podcast so you can find it, text to it, and link to the newsletter. That will be exciting. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
The pleasure was mine.